is John Hanna, and why do we care?
That's a good question. So I am I describe myself as a tennis media guy. So that's kind of my thing. So been doing I don't want to admit the years that I've been doing net news for ALTA, but it's north of 30. And it just in my career just evolved over time to where I took over as the ad director for Racket Tech, which became tennis industry, then racket sports industry, back to tennis industry, back to racket sports industry as it is currently. And then that morphed into a digital business called Baseline Network, and we aggregate the advertising part of that for 6 different websites. But the largest one in the network is tennisrecruiting.net. So I handle all the sponsorship, which is the holy grail of junior tennis in the US. And then from there, it became Jeff Williams, who owned Tennis Magazine and tennis.com at the time, asked me to get involved and handle the endemics, which are the tennis companies, the vertical tennis companies within the tennis industry for Tennis Magazine, which I did for 7 or 8 years, and tennis.com until Tennis Channel bought it. And now I work with Tennis Channel as well, and as a consultant. So I still handle the endemics for Tennis Channel, tennis.com, and oddly enough, they actually own RSI too. And been doing that now since Sinclair bought Tennis Channel 4 years ago, but been with Tennis Channel now about 8 years all in. And interestingly enough, I'm the only guy that survived and still there from the original regime from Jeff Williams. And it's just, and again, it's not because of me, other than doing as long as I have been in the industry and knowing the industry partners as well as I do. I tell Bobby all the time, I've got to be Switzerland. You can't betray confidences, that sort of thing, to survive as long as I have. And I'm a tennis person. So, I mean, I play tennis. My nickname's Johnny Pro-Am in the city. That's what everybody calls me. So, and I still play. I've played 4 already this year, and I'm playing the Dunwoody Junior Pro-Am next Friday at, afternoon at 4 o'clock. So, and it keeps me immersed in the Atlanta tennis community. Is this is my first priority, number one, but also in the industry as a whole. So that's kind of who I am, what I do. And I'm sitting in my office. I have a publishing company called New South Publishing. We do other publications, but in the city, and I'm known as a tennis guy.
And so that's why I want to hand you to Bobby. You mentioned specifically, you say to Bobby all the time, and I know you guys have spoken at length a few times and have known each other for thousands of years. So
Right.
I want to let you guys talk, because
Okay.
I would just interrupt in this case. And Bobby, I'm going to do my best not to, because I just want you guys to talk, as John is well connected. Bobby, you know how well connected he is. And I'd love to kind of draw some of that out, maybe hear a couple of stories just to make it interesting.
Sure.
Well, just stay awake, Shaun, because as John will tell you, one of my big liabilities is staying focused. And I can go off on a tangent, and that's the fun part, because as I said, we've known each other a long time. I think we actually met playing against each other, though I was not high enough on the ladder to actually play against John. But our teams
that's probably true in the late early 90s, probably.
Yeah. Yep, long time ago, and we were a lot better looking. The hair wasn't as gray.
Yeah, but at least I don't mind it turning gray. I just don't want it turning loose.
That's what I'm still shocked that I still have some, so I can't complain. Exactly, all bets are off there. And as John said, as he said, one of the things that I try to share with people that John always tells me is, hey, Bobby, we get paid to play tennis. Never give up that part of it to stay in the business. And it's been advice that I use. I think I've passed it on to you, Shaun. It's a great place to meet people. It's a great place to find out about people, find out what motivates them, and of course, I refer to John as the Godfather. And I'm glad he does do some consulting where he actually gets paid, because I know he does a lot of consulting and spends a lot of time with people on the phone, where he does it out of the goodness of his heart. And we're fortunate enough to have him here. I don't, John, one thing I wanted to ask you about, and this is again a tangent, but I forgot all about. Do they still play the Christmas tournament at Georgia Tech?
I don't know if I don't think he does that anymore. Kenny Thorne kind of ran that for years. And it seems to me, I don't know this, but it seems to me COVID kind of put a stop to that. And they may have done it once or twice, but I don't think they do that anymore. I'd like to see it come back, because it was kind of cool. You get some of the guys that off the tour that train here that would play in that in between, even though there's really not a season in tennis, it's pretty much 11 and a half months a year.
And that we will talk about that because we spoke about that yesterday. But
Right.
and like you said on that tournament, I remember we have a couple mutual friends who were actually playing in that tournament again years and years ago. And I went down to watch them. And within a couple of minutes, I noticed a young teenage boy playing next to him. I was like, forget about the two clowns I know. Who is that kid? And it was a 15-year-old Robbie Ginepri was playing in that tournament. And I was like, whoa. So I got to see Ginepri. So it was a great event. And like you said, a lot of the college players, a lot of guys who were home for the holidays would play in the event. So yeah, it would be great to kind of rekindle that, especially if with the void the Atlanta Open might open
Yeah,
for us.
and that might inspire. I was texting with Kenny Thorne yesterday, oddly enough, and didn't bring that up, but that's something that would be, worth bringing up because when the Atlanta Open rotated, giving the wild card to a Georgia player and a Georgia Tech player every year, they'd rotate it, and now that after this year the Atlanta Open's done, sadly, selfishly, it really bothers me because being a tennis person, being from Atlanta and being in the biggest tennis market in the world, potentially in a city, and not have a pro level tournaments is pretty sad to me. And it's, as I travel and talk to people in the industry, it's embarrassing to them we don't have one. So it'd be nice to see Kenny bring it back. It still wouldn't be the same level as obviously an ATP, but it would be something that people could go enjoy because people do like watching tennis here. So
Well, there's no question, and you're exactly right. People like to go watch, they like to participate, and that's it's a tough market because there's something always going on.
for sure.
We're a tier one market. It's you're not it's not the only event going on, but that doesn't mean we don't have 6 million people. We should be able to do more than one thing at the same time. So
Right. And there's enough tennis people here, but and I don't mean this negatively, and I'll probably get slapped around since this is going to be out there, but Atlanta's kind of an arrogant tennis market. They want to see the best. And I hear that a lot from people that why doesn't Nadal come? Why doesn't, back in the day, Federer come, or why doesn't Djokovic come? And, that's just, it's a tough thing when the schedule and the week that Atlanta had with, being a 250, there was other tournaments going on in other parts of the world and the European guys won't come here. It's that simple,
And,
so.
you're right. I mean, history says we got lucky back in the day when it was the AT&T. Stamford's needed points one year, won the tournament. I think Roddick's first win was back when it was still at the Atlanta Athletic
His
Club.
first and last wins were here.
Really? Wow. That's so. There you go. We did get lucky, and to your point, I think the exhibition, right before COVID, a few years ago when Nadal came and we packed Gwinnett, shows that Atlanta will show up for tier one. You're right. It's a hard thing to go sit in the sun when you're watching two people you might not necessarily know, even though obviously the tennis is amazing.
For sure.
But Atlanta will show up for a tier one event.
Yeah. And so, we'll see. We'll see if that comes back. But, time will tell. Time will tell. I'm hoping we get a 250 back. I've been talking with Peter Lebedevs, and, he's the tournament director now for Atlanta and Dallas. And Dallas became a 500 level event, which already happened in February. It wasn't a 500 this year. It'll be a 500 next year. And, so they're trying, but, they got a cool thing in, this year for the champions finale. So it's going to be the Bryan brothers against John Isner and Andy Roddick, which will be kind of cool to bring those guys back and that connection to the past. There's supposed to be an XO on Sunday night too. I can't say who the players are, but it's one of them. I mean, they're marquee names that people want to see.
And I apologize, I'm going to do it to you right away, but I know you don't like talking about yourself, but when I talk to people about Atlanta and you talk to really about the cultural phenomenon, which is ALTA, when I got here, I mean, I know you grew up here, but when I got here in the early 90s, how culturally subdivisions were being built purposely with 2 tennis courts lighted and bathrooms to accommodate the fact that these neighborhoods were going to want to play ALTA. You've seen it the whole time. What have you seen from with the beginning? Could you have ever anticipated that it would get to the frenzy of, let's say, the early 2000s when it was just completely dominated the city?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Yeah, because I grew up here. I mean, I was playing in the 12s, or I was 12 years old rather, maybe 13, playing under 18s. Just the club we played at. Just they didn't have enough juniors. It was called Pinecrest in East Cobb. And Jerry Baskin ended up buying it and made an academy out of it. It's now gone. It's leveled. It's condos now. But I just remember in those days, ALTA going, the pro there going, yeah, there's 10,000 people playing ALTA in Atlanta. And that's a big number. I mean, that is a really big number when you think about it. And watching it grow, didn't anticipate it getting like it is, but it just kept growing. And, the magic of ALTA, and I say this often, is, and it's kind of like the zebras, a zebra black with white stripes or white with black stripes. So tennis grew here. Did it grow because the demand was there, or because the builders decided to build 2 courts and a pool with the lights and the functioning bathroom like you talk about, and then people started playing ALTA? What came first? And I have a lot of debates with people in the industry that have spent time in Atlanta of what really caused it. But really, the crux to the reasoning is not many people are from here. I'm one of the few that's actually from Atlanta, and tennis and ALTA became the conduit to bring neighbors together. And talk about a story, Shaun. Some stories. The second house we moved in East Cobb, Hedgerow 5, and you get the welcome wagon. You hear all these stories about that. Get the knock on the door. My wife and I answer the door. Don't know who this person is, and they got a basket of breads and fruits and stuff. Welcome to the neighborhood. Our first question was, "Do you play tennis?" And I kind of tapped my wife's leg. I'm like, "Okay, I know where this is going because I've heard this story many times, but I've never experienced it myself." And I didn't say anything. Sharon goes, "No, I don't play." And she goes, "Well, you do now. We've got an ALTA team for you." And I went, "That's awesome." And I go, then she said, "Do you play?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm on an ALTA team." She goes, "Well, we don't care about you now." And that was and we're still friends with a lot of those people. And that's what really, is the magic of it. Then, and the other part of it is, and what other city can you play an ALTA match where I can be in a neighborhood like I was in Hedgerow and go play at Cherokee or TPC Sugarloaf? Shaun was there at one time, and they welcome you to play an ALTA match against them. Most cities, you have to be a member. They won't let you in. And, again, years and years ago, again, probably 92 or 3, Rick Siebert was the office manager of ALTA at the time. And he told me this story. He got a letter from the folks at Cherokee saying that you need to send a letter out to the entire membership that they have to wear a collared shirt on our courts, and it has to be predominantly white. And he said, "No problem. We just won't schedule ALTA matches down there." And they go, No, don't do that. We'll issue shirts to let them borrow to, adhere to our rules at the club. Now they've since, eased up on that, but that's the kind of power that ALTA had. And it's because it's the sense of community. And that's really what it is. It's a tennis match. It's a social event where a tennis match breaks out. That's what it is. I mean, look at the food. ALTA gives a city final championship plate to the best food at the city finals. So, I mean, that's what makes it really unique and different. And, there's 28 levels. It's a team thing, not an individual thing. There's just a lot of nuances to it that make it different. But to your point, the court situation, I mean, look at not Legacy Park, Bridge Mill up in Canton. They got 24 tennis courts in a neighborhood. Where else in the country are you going to find a neighborhood that's got that many courts? It's crazy. Town Lake Hills has got a bunch. There's a lot of neighborhoods that have got a lot of courts.
Oh my God, you bring up Bridge. I remember when they were being built. Derek Emile opened that place. Was that?
Yeah.
Gosh, that's a long time ago.
I mean, there's more teaching professionals in this city than anywhere else in the country too. And it's a byproduct of just the league tennis here. ALTA, USTA, you got the flex leagues, and I'm a fan of the flex leagues because it keeps people engaged in tennis. And, I'll hear them say, "I'm playing with my partner to get ready for ALTA season," or, their USTA season, whatever it might be. ALTA just happened to be the first at the league play. And, it's embraced. I don't know if you guys know this, but they've expanded the boundary areas. They've reached out, and now they've included all of Forsyth, all of Cherokee, part of Hall County, and some on the south as well. The majority of the ALTA growth is north, say 75, 85, that corridor is where it is, and straight up 400. And that'll take time for the word to get out. But, the cool thing is, I know this is tennis, but ALTA launched the pickleball league. And one of the unintended consequences is a lot of the facilities that have kind of become dormant because the neighborhood changed or transitioned, and there's not the ALTA teams that it once had. And they block those facilities if they're inactive for 3 years. Well, with the pickleball situation, suddenly people are picking that up. And now these facilities are being unblocked for pickleball and tennis now, which is kind of cool. And they're suddenly going, "Hey, we can play ALTA out of here now," meaning tennis. So there is, just some cool unintended consequences. But the growth in ALTA is growing. COVID was the best thing that could have happened to ALTA as far as, people engaging in tennis, not for the world, mind you, but certainly for tennis.
Well, you brought something up right away. It's pretty funny. I grew up on Long Island, 35
Yeah.
miles from New York City. And where I live now in Forsyth County is about 35 miles from Atlanta. And I tell everybody I go to Atlanta far more than I ever went to New York City. But I was talking to a pro from Florida who does the seasonal. She goes up and down, and she asked me where I lived. I said, well, it's considered Metro Atlanta because I judge Metro Atlanta by how far ALTA goes.
Right.
If
I mean,
if you're within ALTA, then it's Metro Atlanta.
well, in the old ALTA boundaries were Cobb, Fulton, Gwinnett, DeKalb, and Clayton, those 5 core counties. And to be a facility that was approved for league play, you had to be within 10 miles of a limited access highway, a county bordering one of the 5 main counties, and you had they had higher standard criteria. You had to have functioning lights, a functioning bathroom, and the bathroom's got to be like within 100 feet or 100 yards of the courts. And because there are some grandfathered facilities that don't have lights here, which is really a problem with all the leagues that play in the evenings. So,
well, we won't even go there because I know there's with all the everything's going on. That's my only gripe with pickleball is that the younger crowd is coming in and they're doing a little damage. So I know there are a few facilities that are contemplating turning the lights off earlier because they want the kids to go home earlier. But
yeah, yeah.
so we'd be remiss. You're a heck of a player. What got you to be 2 hands on both sides?
Well, I jokingly say because I'm not strong enough to hit it with one hand on both sides. So, but that's how I started. I went out the first lessons I took. I was hitting a forehand right-handed, and I was hitting a forehand left-handed. I had no backhand, and the pro's like, that's not going to work. And so the pro, oddly enough, was from New York, and he grew up with Gene and Sandy Mayer. And I'm sure most people don't even know who those guys are, but Gene got to top 4 in the world, good player, and he was a 2-handed player. So that's who I tried to emulate. Now I morphed it. He really had basically a left-handed baseball bat grip for hitting his right on the right side. So it was cross-handed on the forehand, but literally, his hands next to each other. I overlap my right. And sadly, somebody should have changed that when I was 15, 16 years old, but it never happened. And, now we know that I'm older, and it really is hard when you play guys that are, even my age, and I'm playing the ad court and they hit the ball down the tee. They hit a bomb down the tee. I got to let go and hit a one-handed return, which I can do. I can hit one, but after that, it's got to be 2. So, I mean, it's hard because I'm 5'10", and you're giving up a lot of reach on either side, hitting 2 hands on both sides. So, needless to say, my singles career is done. That is over. And so I play doubles now. It's fun. I can trash talk, which I'm quite good at. So I'm probably a better trash talker than I'm a tennis player. So
yeah, I have that trait. That's not a big deal.
Yeah.
That's what makes it fun too.
But the pro-ams are fun for, in that. And I do. What's interesting is I have a lot of people, a lot of pros reach out to me and ask me because they've got a kid that's playing 2-handed, as well, and they want me to show them what I do. And I'm like, I wouldn't advise this, but this is how I do it. I show them, and I show them how I was taught originally, and then they kind of figure out their own as well. But the pro-am thing has been, because it's all doubles, you're playing with members of the clubs and stuff, and they're a blast. So it keeps me playing, and it's active, and I'm getting to burn calories and get some exercise and meet people. So
yeah, I wasn't shocked. Like you said, I grew up. The Mayers had a big presence in New York, and I grew up. My coach was King Van Ostrand, whose daughter Molly was a quarterfinals for Wimbledon. We're the same age, and Molly was 2-handed on both sides.
Yeah, I hated it when I was in college because people were like, "Oh, did you get this from Monica Seles?" I'm like, how much older I am than Monica Seles is? So it was Gene Mayer. But there's been, Fru McMillan, I think, was 2-handed on both sides. There's a bunch of guys that were. The best I played in you remember when the Bryans Wayne came to town, and it was a whole save doubles event. They did it at Lifetime. It was Rack Club of the South at the time. And Brian Parrott, I think, was the one kind of orchestrating it because the double specialists were going to be a thing of the past. Well, some of these, tour guys, Peter Lundquist, I can't remember his name, but anyway, there's just a lot of, guys that were double specialists on the tour came in here. John Isner was at Georgia at the time, and he came and played. Manny Diaz came over here and played, and I was playing with the guys, and I'm hitting the 2-handed returns, and they're like, "You're like Fabrice Santoro." I'm like, that is the awesome, best compliment you could ever give me, because we play nothing alike, but I dig that, that was the comparison. So, that's, I've had fun with it over the years, but it's funny. I don't even think of that when I go play until somebody, "Oh, you're 2-handed on both sides." Yeah, I guess I am. So.
Well, and this is a great part about being in the business as well. You just brought up a great name, Brian Parrott. The opportunity to meet various people through the years, and you know, Brian had kids, and I love Brian. He would always refer to them by what they did. Oh, that's the tennis player, that's the golfer, that's the
That's the
artist.
artist. Yeah.
You know, they didn't have names. It was, you know, and his
Yeah.
wife was wonderful, you know, at Gineppri's place. And, you know, his father's history with the Brooklyn Dodgers during the time that Jackie Robinson was breaking in, and his time with Nike. You know, the controversy of the McEnroe Connors era that all originated out of a Davis Cup match in Portland, where he was stationed.
That's
So
right. Yeah.
it's been a lot of fun to be in the environment. And like I said, I attribute Billy Pate was my first stepping stone, but then getting to know you and being able just to be around and just to be a part of it has been such, it's a great, like
Well,
I said,
you were
we've
involved in
met
the
so many people.
you were involved in the original Atlanta Pro League, you know. I mean that, you know, Bob Moreland started it, sadly, you know, passes away, and then you guys, you know, when you were at Netcore took it over, and then, you know, then Tim Noonan and David Drew and those guys took, you know, did it, and it's actually come back. There's a pro league that's starting this summer. So
Well, we hope to be involved.
there's
We hope
two
to
of
be
them.
out
Yeah,
there for
Sean's
sure.
right. Elijah's doing one too, but the one I'm talking about is Marcus's, because it's more of a barnstorming entertainment thing. It's not Elijah's is the big boys. I mean, those are the ones that are trying to get points and to make it, you know, in the satellites or the challengers, which that ship sailed a long time ago for me. So
Well, and you said that was a great event back in the day because we'd go to the clubs where one of the pros was still playing, and you know, more or less, it was a club outing. It was, you
yeah,
know, you had a few diehards who would travel week to week, but most of the time, it was, you know, you're going to go out one time for the Friday night, see your pro, and root on your pro, and get to see some good. And as you said, I mean, we had Doug Flack was playing, T.J. Middleton was playing. I mean,
Ellis
there was,
Ferreira played, Michael
yeah, Ellis,
Pernfors played. We had a
yeah,
lot of good players that played in that, you know, that won.
yeah.
Yeah, so this one's now is not, but I mean, if you remember, Bobby, I mean, I like Howard Herr reached out to me. He's been texting me because he's in town playing the Atlanta Senior Invitational, which before you got on, I told Sean's, you know, taking place at Cherokee and the other clubs in town this week. And he you know, moved back to South Africa, but I played on his pro league team for 6 or 7 years and he was out of the Falls of Autry Mills and played in that pro-am, but Howard being there, and he played with Per Nielsen, so you had a giant and a short guy, and they were very successful. And I've never played in front of that many people in my life. They counted one night, they had 1,200 people out there, and that's a
Yeah.
neighborhood, you
Yes.
know. So it was, to your point, it was a cool thing for a lot of guys that didn't play, you know, big time college tennis. So
And as you said, I mean, just to see the quality, Howard Herr would do you know, qualify when the old Atlanta
yeah,
AT&T event, he qualified. Andre Janisak and Paul Mancini qualified for the doubles and gave Todd Martin and his part, you know, took a few games. And
yeah,
you know, there was some great talent walking around the city that you could go. I think that remember the year that Doug Flack played, I think he had a losing record in the pro league, but he beat Andre Agassi at Wimbledon that year. So
right.
that was the joke. It's like, yeah, Doug beat Andre, but he got a losing
Can't win in
record in the
Atlanta,
pro
but
league.
a
Yeah.
lot of guys would get off the tour and they'd come and play, you know, ALTA with us and get thumped the first couple of matches just because it's a different animal. And
Yeah.
guys get amped up playing guys like that too, you know. And I get it, and a lot of them won't play ALTA now because of it. So,
Yeah.
it's just kind of funny. I mean, look, to me, it's exercise and fun, and I get to hang out. I mean, my team's playing in the city finals on Saturday. I'm not in the lineup, but I'm going, and
Yeah.
you know, I'm going to hang out with the boys, and it'll be fun. So
Well, and they made it social, you know,
yeah,
and that's one of the things that that's one part I will see at my clubs is people their lives have gotten more complicated. They don't hang out as much. And that's a little disappointing that because it was the tie, it was the community part of it. And now it just seems like it's part of it. I want to get my match and I want to get my exercise because that's my health, but I don't have 4 hours anymore. And
you
you
know,
know, that,
I see that more with the men. The women
yes,
still hang out. And now the
yes,
challenge there, like for the Thursday ladies, and you know, as you know, Alta's like 63, 65% women. You got
yeah.
a Thursday league and a Sunday league. So there's, you know, double the opportunity for them. And except the Thursdays, they hang except for whoever's playing line 5. And if they've got kids to get off, you know, meet at the bus, you know, so I
Sure.
get that, but they still, they hang more and they do more, but then they do stuff social. The other thing that I find fascinating, we talked about this yesterday, is how many of these pros get groups and travel with them and go to resorts and do, they call it spring training for ALTA, the ALTA leagues and stuff. A lot of guys do that. So, but that camaraderie was built because of the relationships they've made with their ALTA teams. They wouldn't travel together if they didn't like each other, and had something in common in their neighborhoods. So that's a pretty cool thing. But
and you get to meet more people too as a pro. That there's more than just the tennis. Like you said, if your desire is to be on the man, you're talking to tennis is not a cheap sport. You're probably speaking with somebody that's got an interesting background. And people like to share a little bit about themselves because it takes the pressure off of hitting the ball, and that's always a great introduction. I mean, we almost scored the title sponsor to the senior tour through somebody that we were coaching at the time, because he turned out to be a big shot at Senden Corporation, and they were very interested in so tennis has just opened so many doors down here, and it like you said, just it's been a fabric of it that I can't explain. And as you said, coming from New York, I was getting the arguments with my friends and family about the predisposition of what they think the South is about, and I'm like, you don't even know. I can't speak to the rest of Georgia. I can tell you in Atlanta's the most diversified place I ever lived.
Right.
And we get along.
Well, and because of, I'm, like I said, I'm unique. I mean, I don't know if I'm probably the only one from Georgia on the call on this call right now. Yeah. So John's from here too. Okay. So there's two. That's a very unusual thing.
Yeah.
Most of the time most of the meetings I go to, it's nobody's from Atlanta except for me. And that, again, I know we said that earlier, but that's what ALTA's done. And, sadly, I hate to compare it to USTA. I wish they would embrace the social element of it. I play USTA stuff. I represent Georgia in this senior cup. And then I did this intersectional thing, a national team event in the 55s. And it's fun. But it's about winning. You want to win. And, there's a place for that. But, you talk to the manufacturers, the health benefits. I mean, Brian Hayline, who is, the president of the USTA right now, the 2-year presidency or whatever, and he's a doctor, and he is the Pied Piper. And I've only met him a few times, so I don't know him that well, but he talks about the biggest health benefit out there from a sports standpoint is tennis. And he's got the data and the stats to back it up. So he is the Pied Piper promoting the game. So if you can add the social element to a health benefit, it's a double win. And that's what we've done here. And that to me is what makes the city go. And that's, again, I'll circle all the way back, why it kind of chaps me that we're losing a pro tournament. So, and we're not losing it because Atlanta didn't support it. We're losing it because of the calendar being squeezed, because of the Master Series, the 1,000 levels are now expanding a couple of days. And so some week in that late July in August month was going to get squeezed. So Atlanta goes away, and sadly Newport goes away. So here you got the Hall of Fame. The Hall of Fame is going to exist, and they're going to do the induction. They just won't have a grass court tournament there anymore. It's kind of sad. That's an old event.
And I know we talked about it yesterday, but I've been steering away from it a little bit because I know that ties into how we wrap things up. So I've been like, okay, we're going to get to that. Because I know, because I had crib notes. I knew when we talked about it yesterday, I was like, all right, how do I keep this out of the conversation until when Shaun drops the bomb? Shaun, you want to ask the question now because there's going to be more to it, or
I'm okay. If it needs to go somewhere, I can jump right in, because if it needs to expand, we often, John, do this at the end because we want to have that. What's your final thing that you get to share with the audience? And in this case, it's coming. Hopefully, everybody knew it was coming. Because it's something you really want to prepare for. So when I'm going to ask, and I'm going to say, if you were king of tennis, John Hanna, which there are plenty of people out there that want to know what this answer is. I won't say highly anticipated, but maybe highly anticipated. If you're king of tennis, what is there anything you would do or change?
There's several things, and some of them are controversial. And the guys at Tennis Channel, if they see this, probably shoot me if I said it. But one of them is, there's got to be a season. There's got to be a schedule. There's no other sport that goes on as long as we do. So selfishly, that hurts me professionally, because Tennis Channel, we want live tennis all the time, right? So if it going on year round, but I think there's ways around that. But you got to shorten it up, because the players are they're getting beat up and they're getting hurt. I mean, I just read something that Matteo Berrettini why he bailed out of the Italian Open. So he's not playing, so he's not in Rome. Yannick Sinner's not playing. And these are big names, and those guys happen to both be Italian. So that's a problem. You know, Rafa's issues now, granted he's older, but guys are getting hurt. And so having a season is, I think, paramount. I'm a big fan of having bigger pressure points. So no ad scoring would be, you know, I'd be interested in that. It would shorten the matches, which again, I think Americans have a short time span to watch. You know, three out of five makes sense for the majors. I mean, it needs that you don't want any weird fluky things happening, but some of the other tournaments, I mean, it worked in doubles. Bob and Mike Bryan were adamant against the no ad scoring. And then somebody presented them the data and realized that it really does work out. The right team does win most of the time, like it should. There always are upsets like they are in regular scoring. So I would like to see that. And, but the season is the thing that's got to happen. And everybody talks about it, but it's a business. So therefore it is really tough. Who's going to be the one that says, okay, I'll give up my business and my tournament and, you know, save the players, but something's got to happen. And, you know, you compare it to baseball. They wanted to speed up the game and shorten it. They have a season, but you know, now they're complaining that pitchers are getting injured. You're going to have unintended consequences of these things, but you've got to shorten it down to help the player. That's just, you know, because you're getting injured.
And I always try to push back in real time. So in that case, who do we, and by we, I mean you, John, who do you talk to get this done? So King of Tennis is always, okay, here's the greatest thing we could possibly do. Is this just a pipe dream, or do we know who to talk to? Like, how do we get this done?
I think it's real. I think it's going to happen. And there's some things, underlying currents, and I can't speak authoritatively about what I'm about to tell you, but there's a movement out there from PIF, which is the public investment fund. I guess it's the Saudi money that does Live Golf. And they want to, try to take over the ATP and the WTA. And I know that's a big issue right now. And the majors, the tournament directors of the four majors met in Indian Wells this year. And I don't have all the details on it and are concerned about that. And so I think it's going to happen because you got player councils pushing back on it. So one of those two, I think that will be part of one of the byproducts of the compromise. At least I think that's kind of the scuttlebutt. We'll see if it does happen in reality. And like you said, is it a pipe dream? But something's got to give, because if you don't have the product and the players of the product, then you got a problem. And so, and the game has become so physical. I mean, walk around the players lounge at the US Open and the humans are huge. I mean, I look like a munchkin in there. And they play every, week, that you got the equipment changes, playing with poly strings. I mean, it is hard on the body. So the physicality, something's got to give. So I know I'm being vague on the PIF and the majors, because one of those two is the cream's going to rise and it's going to basically take over. And I think they will be the kings that are going to dictate how this goes. And, in a perfect world, if you could do it, you have the US Open kind of ends it. Then you have events like the Labor Cup and other things, the Tour Championship at the end of the year, to give the players a break. Now, you and I both know they're probably going to do XOs, but that's more of a show. That's not a 6 or 5 round or 7 round event that beats up your body. And it's more of an entertainment thing. But that to me has got to happen. And Tennis Channel will be there the whole way to, air all of it.
And so one more pushback before I let Bobby play with it. Yeah, I love the fact that these guys are superheroes. I mean, I walk around, I'm a normal size, 6 foot tall guy, and you just feel small at these places. And you realize the Berrettinis, they're all 6'6" now, and they're all huge and phenomenally fit. But at some point, why now? Why do we need to change the season to make sure these guys can all last 20 years like Roger? That used to be the outlier.
No, you're right.
You're played that long. Why do we have to make sure they can all last that long when back in the day we knew the clay courter wasn't going to be #1 in the world for more than a couple of years?
Right. That's right. Well, I mean, if you think about it, Shaun, people didn't think Rafa, and me being one of them, was going to last as long as he did. We thought he was going to wear his body out for sure. But I think the difference is, you remember when Andres Gomez played Andre in the finals of the French? I think it was in '90, and he was 30 years old, and he was ancient in tennis age, thinking at that time. And now that's you're kind of at your peak, but the training changed. McEnroe's days, the guys didn't train like they do now. They didn't have a physio. They didn't use the weights. They didn't have a dietitian, all that stuff. That's changed to make these guys last longer. a la Fed, Nadal. Look at the Joker. He gets in a hyperbaric chamber all the time. I mean, the guy he is so meticulous and precise with everything in his life. And so that's created the longevity. So that is the opportunity. But at the same time, and it's not because of that, but with the humans getting bigger, the equipment changing, the physicality is far more physical. And if you don't believe me, go watch a match from the 70s or the 80s, or even watch Agassi and Becker play. And he was boom, boom back in the day. It's not even close to the way the balls are being hit now. So the physicality's changed. So you've got two things going on. You got so much physical stuff. I mean, with their bodies, you know, weight training, all the physio stuff they do. So you got that going on. And then you've got the guys being able to do it longer, but with the equipment stuff, burning them out faster because the equipment was different. Everybody was playing with gut back in those days too, you know, or a hybrid of gut and some synthetic. Now they're playing with polys. The ball, the spin of it, you know, that's you can impart on a ball is phenomenal now. So the control is off the charts. Points last longer. You remember in the probably late 90s, early 2000s, Edberg and Becker were playing Wimbledon finals, and somebody did a stat on how much time the ball was actually in play. And it was a 5-set match, and it was like 2 minutes and 30 seconds, actually ball in play. So what did Wimbledon do? They slowed the courts down. So now you got baseliners winning Wimbledon. You know, so the physicality has changed. So you've got some variables that changed in the game that were different. So and that's why it's very difficult to compare eras, and I get all of that. But something has got to give because right now the players are given, and it's not good for the sport.
Well, you're exactly right. It's not good for the sport because that's where we take our cues. The recreational player always is dictated by what's going on at the next level. And we want to see the best players. Goes back to bringing Rafa to Atlanta. Right. Hey, we came out to see Rafa. We want to see that. We want to have the opportunity to see it. And, you know, it goes back to the old, remember the Vision Quest movie when, you know, Pele and his bicycle kick. It's not what happens. It's what, you know, what happens during that 6 minutes. It's not the outcome. It's watching it.
And Bobby, if you watch that Nadal, that exo that Nadal did with Grigor Dimitrov here in Atlanta, because, you know, everybody was excited because Rafa had never been to Atlanta before. He had no idea that tennis was as big as it was here.
Yeah.
You know? And what was interesting is that match, Rafa played like he doesn't normally play. He was flattening out balls. He was hitting missile shots. And I was there with my buddy, Steven Enix, you know, and he's looking at me going, did you know he could do this? And I'm like, well, I kind of suspected, but I'd never seen it before because, you know, you used to seeing him with high margins, you know, heavy top, working points, kind of taking your legs and making it physical. But he was having a ball hitting, I mean, missiles. And I'm like going, boy, he actually could play like that, but that wouldn't be successful for him. He was going to impose his will and his physicality on you. And that's how he's won the French 14 times, you know?
Absolutely.
So, I mean, think about that. He's got 14 French Opens. Most of the people on the tour haven't won 14 tournaments. I mean, put that in perspective.
On the toughest surface, no less.
Yeah. I mean, and that's why, I mean, look, I hope he plays the French, you know, but to go best of 5, 7 rounds is a tall order.
That's
you know,
big.
I mean, you know, I know he won yesterday, but he won against a guy that was like 110 in the world, and he lost the first set, and he got it together, and he was up 3-1 or 3-0 in the first set and lost 5 games in a row. I think he was up 3-1, lost 5 games in a row. So.
But yeah, that's my biggest. It helps the game, you know. To be able to see the guys, keep them healthy. Nobody wants to not see these guys. Again, 2 Italians not playing the Italian Open. 2 Italians who now have the potential to win it, not playing the Italian Open.
And what I don't want to see happen is those are huge historical legacy tournaments. And what I'm afraid of is what they're doing is they're going, you know what? I'm going to skip the Italian Open to rest my body to get ready for Roland.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's not good for the sport either, because we're so concentrated on the majors. And that's the other thing that PIF and the majors are trying to do is to make a hierarchy, if you will, of the tournaments, because the average tennis player doesn't know the difference between a 250, a 500, 1,000, or they know the majors, but they don't know the others. And that's probably not a bad thing. So but Shaun, to your point, and I agree with your pushback. These are age-old questions, man. And everybody talks big about it, but who's got the, you know what, to do something about it, you know, because the inmates to a certain degree run the asylum. You know, the players, it's their deal. There's no commissioner, you know. Can you imagine if John McEnroe was a commissioner? He'd lay the law down, you know. So
Well, it's one of the
definitely
sports that
appreciate
doesn't
that.
have a commissioner.
I know exactly. And so, but I think it's because I know for a fact that that PIF's going to have a master's level, like a 1,000 tournament, I think in 25 or 6, that's going to be right before Australia, which is going to shake things up because that's never happened before. Because Australia usually kicks off the year. There's a few tournaments that lead up to Australia, but the tennis world pays attention is with Australia kind of kicking off the tennis year.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. Well, I tried to keep it friendly this time around, John, so we get you back.
yeah, no, I mean, look, I mean, I can talk this stuff, and hopefully, there's not going to be somebody fact checking me, going, "Oh, you were wrong about that year," and which I'll just put this disclaimer out there: the older I get, the better I was, and my memory's not as good as it was either. So,
Well, you're always, and you still are, God bless you, you're still playing competitive. So that's
yeah,
something to be said right there.
still trying. Yeah, at 56, I'm happy to be still playing AA1. I don't play much, but I do play, and I did win once this season, so that was good.
I am going to rat him out, Shaun. I had grilled chicken yesterday. He had a cheeseburger, and he
I
made me
did.
watch him eat it.
I had comfort food, and it was because I eat a Caesar salad with grilled chicken pretty much every day. And then when I go out and have a chance, I have a burger and fries. I do not, and I will not apologize.
I appreciate that decision making, John.
Well, it was like the last time we had a Brookwood Grill. Think about how much food we had that day.
We had a lot of
Oh,
food that day.
Good stuff. So,
Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
no,
Always
thank you.
good.
Thanks for having me, and I appreciate it. And I'll give you a plug. Marcus Ritchie's a big fan. He likes this. He called me about it when he was putting together the Pro League, that he's a big fan of this Go Tennis podcast. So congratulations to you guys.